Meghan Markle is a contrivance, as she cosplays yet again her own mother-in-law because Meghan wants to be beloved as Diana.
Meghan Markle just turned 45, and what should have been a straightforward birthday celebration has become something else entirely, something that exposes a pattern far more deliberate than anyone in her circle wants to acknowledge. Because the real story here isn't the balloons or the kitchen dancing.
This is her most embarrassing performance yet.
It's what her specific choices that day reveal when you place them next to a woman she has been quietly mirroring for years, Princess Diana. And the word people keep landing on isn't tribute, it's cosplay. This is how Meghan Markle celebrated her birthday, by copying Princess Diana, and why that word has stuck. On the 4th of August 2026, inside a 1420 million Montecito mansion, Meghan Markle turned 45, and the way she chose to mark it was, on the surface, exactly what you'd expect from someone who has spent years deliberately rebuilding her image outside the palace walls. Prince Harry filmed her in the kitchen, birthday crown on her head, wearing an "It's Giving Mrs. t-shirt, dancing while food sizzled on the stove. Harry can be heard muttering, "Oh dear," in the background. Out in the backyard, she jumped into the swimming pool fully committed, clutching an enormous bunch of balloons, captured in black and white. Inside, the couple attempted to balance silver party hats on their two dogs, Beagle Mia and Black Lab Pula. Her lifestyle brand, as ever, marked the occasion with a public tribute featuring a childhood photo. That was the story Meghan was telling about herself. But what she posted is only half the picture, because buried inside these birthday choices was something observers who track her public image had been quietly documenting for years. So the question isn't what she did, it's what she was wearing when she did it. Now here's where the story shifts, because the birthday content Meghan shared was unpolished. The birthday dinner photo, posted on Instagram on August 5th, Meghan is captured mid-moment, blowing out candles on a cake garnished with yellow hibiscus flowers, celebrating what she described as a beautiful 24 hours. And the visual did not sit in isolation long before commentators started pulling at the thread. Because what observers who track royal fashion patterns noticed was not just what she wore, it was what the composition rhymed with, the framing, the occasion, the deliberate warmth. Comparisons to Diana's own privately staged celebratory photography started circulating within hours. This is not happening in a vacuum. The Diana-adjacent fashion comparison is not something commentators invented for this birthday. It has a documented paper trail. February 2025, the purple Northwestern sweatshirt, the exact style Diana wore in Chicago in June 1996. Nigeria, May 2024, the gold collar necklace echoing Diana's 1990 visit to the same country. Diana's actual cross necklace, a gift from Harry, worn on Meghan's own body during that same trip. Each instance, individually, might be coincidence. Collectively, that explanation starts to require a great deal of effort to sustain, which raises the real question: is this a pattern, or is it being constructed as one? Now, here is where the comfortable defense of coincidence starts to genuinely collapse. Because there is a difference between reaching for Diana's aesthetic once, or even twice, and that call did not exist in isolation. There is the Harper's Bazaar shoot. Meghan seated cross-legged black trousers, white shirt, a pose so precisely mirroring Diana's 1994 Patrick Demarchelier photograph that commentators immediately surfaced the comparison. That Demarchelier image was not even widely published during Diana's lifetime. It appeared in Paris Match after her death. Whoever recreated that pose knew the source material. That requires research. So, is this a pattern? Sources say yes, and it is genuinely difficult to argue otherwise when the evidence is this specific and this consistent across years and continents. But here is the question. The pattern alone does not answer. What is the intent behind it? Because there is a version of this that reads as deep personal reverence. A woman who married into a family still defined by its most famous loss, choosing carefully to honor that legacy through fashion. And there is another version entirely. One where the word people have quietly started using is not tribute. The word they have started using is cosplay. And where that word came from, and what it actually implies, is a more complicated story than it first appears. The framing first gained real traction in tabloid comment sections and royal-adjacent social media accounts sometime in mid-2024, before migrating upward into opinion columns dressed as fashion reporting. That migration matters, because there is a genuine difference between a fashion critic making a considered case about deliberate image construction and a comment thread finding a more cutting word for something it already disliked. And that distinction is exactly what gets quietly buried every time the word cosplay gets deployed about Meghan. Here is what cosplay actually implies. It implies performance without ownership. It implies wearing something you are not, pretending to be someone you cannot be. When the word gets attached to Meghan's Diana references, it is not simply describing the act of wearing a similar outfit. It is making a claim about authenticity. It is saying, this woman does not genuinely feel this, she is staging it. But here is the question sources inside fashion commentary have started asking, and it is one nobody has answered cleanly. Why does the same behavior get coded differently depending on who performs it? Kate Middleton has been photographed in looks directly echoing Diana on at least a dozen documented occasions. The framing those choices received? Touching tribute, emotional continuity, a daughter-in-law honoring a legacy. The coverage reads like a salute. Meghan does it, and the word cosplay appears. The double standard tracks something deeper than fashion criticism. It tracks a pre-existing editorial verdict about which woman belongs inside this story, and which one is an interloper borrowing what was never hers. Nothing in the images themselves explains the difference in language. The styling choices are comparably deliberate, the visual parallels comparably specific. What is different is the subject. And that is a problem for anyone arguing the cosplay label is simply an objective description of what Meghan did on her birthday. Because labels are not neutral. They carry the assumptions of whoever reaches for them first. The tabloids reached for cosplay. Credible fashion reporting largely did not. So the framing attached to Meghan's birthday choices originated not from careful analysis of intent, but from commentary that had already decided what her intent was. Which raises a harder question entirely. If the word cosplay reveals more about its authors than its subject, what does that say about the broader charge that Meghan has no identity of her own? The charge that Meghan lacks an identity of her own did not begin with her birthday photographs. It has been circulating in royal commentary circles since at least 2018, when analysts began noting the frequency with which her public image seemed to shift depending on context. American actress one moment, dutiful royal the next, Sussex brand founder after that. Critics framed each reinvention not as growth, but as evidence of an underlying absence, something missing at the center. And that framing has specific exhibits attached to it. The Pamela Anderson comparisons surfaced when commentators pointed to Meghan's apparent adoption of a quieter, stripped-back aesthetic in late 2023. No heavy styling, minimal makeup, deliberate naturalism. Sources close to fashion commentary noted at the time that the shift tracked almost precisely with Anderson's own celebrated image rehabilitation. Her untouched Valentino appearance at the 2023 Oscars, having dominated cultural conversation for weeks beforehand. The timing, critics argued, was not coincidental. Then came the Princess of Wales comparisons. Catherine. Observers began cataloging as a structural mirroring, similar silhouettes, comparable color palettes, analogous positioning in official photographs. Each individual instance was defensible, nothing individually damning. But collectively, the pattern became the argument. Now, the psychological framing commentators attached to all of this is genuinely interesting. Because the clinical language being reached for is not neutral description, it is diagnosis. Applied to a public figure who has been under continuous observation since 2016, it functions less as analysis and more as verdict. The question worth asking is this: at what point does strategic self-presentation become evidence of a missing self? Because every public figure constructs a version of themselves for consumption. The construction is the job. What makes Meghan's construction uniquely suspect in this framing is never quite made explicit. It is implied. The references pile up and the implication is that she is always reaching for someone else's image because she cannot locate her own. But here is what that argument quietly ignores entirely. Diana did exactly the same thing. Not occasionally, systematically, and with considerable professional infrastructure behind every single choice. Sources close to fashion history are clear on this point. Diana in the early 1980s was not some naturally polished icon who emerged fully formed from Kensington Palace. She was a 20-year-old nursery assistant handed to a team of stylists, designers, and image architects who spent years constructing a visual identity for her from the ground up. Anna Harvey at Vogue London guided her wardrobe selections for over a decade. Catherine Walker built her silhouette deliberately. Every public appearance was a collaborative production. And Diana borrowed, constantly. Her 1994 revenge dress silhouette drew directly from the assertive power dressing that had defined American executive fashion throughout the late 1980s. Her shift toward minimalist Catherine Walker column gowns in her final years tracked almost precisely with what Carolyn Bessette Kennedy was doing in New York at exactly the same moment. Fashion historians have noted the parallels extensively. More pointed still, Diana was accused during her lifetime of deliberate image construction. The Patrick Demarchelier sessions were carefully managed. The panorama interview look was chosen with precision. No, the question this raises is uncomfortable but necessary. If Diana's borrowing was sophistication and Meghan's borrowing is pathology, what exactly is the variable that changed between those two assessments? The clothes are similar. The method is similar. The intention, as far as anyone can actually document it, is similar. Something else is doing the work in that distinction, and it is not fashion. Why does Meghan's birthday specifically become a Diana story at all? Who is actually manufacturing that connection? The answer is the machinery itself. Understanding that machinery means understanding exactly how a woman jumping into a swimming pool in California while wearing a birthday crown becomes, within approximately 4 hours of posting, a national conversation about Princess Diana. The caption does not need to allege anything directly. The juxtaposition does the work. Diana poolside, 1991. Meghan poolside, 2025. The framing is built into the image arrangement itself. What this means practically is that Meghan's birthday cannot be reported as simply Meghan's birthday. But here is the question that actually matters. When the public saw all of it, how did they actually split? The answer is not the clean binary either camp wants you to believe. On one side, a genuinely significant portion of Meghan's audience read the Diana references as continuity, not calculation. The argument, repeated across comment sections and fan accounts in the days following August 5th, was essentially this: she married into Diana's family. She wears Diana's actual jewelry as a gift from Diana's son. She lives inside a legacy she did not construct and cannot escape. Calling that cosplay, supporters argued, was a framing applied deliberately to strip affection of its legitimacy, but the other half of the response was harder to dismiss with sentiment alone. Critics pointed to the February 2025 Northwestern sweatshirt, the Nigeria necklace, the Demarchelier pose recreation, and now the birthday pool imagery as a sequence that is individually explainable and collectively something else entirely. Sources close to royal commentary circles suggest the word cosplay landed and stayed not because any single image demanded it, but because the accumulation made coincidence genuinely difficult to argue. No independently verified polling measuring public response to this birthday exists. What does exist is the engagement record. The pool photo generated comment-to-like ratios substantially higher than her preceding posts, which analysts tracking her account noted was consistent with divisive rather than warmly received content. The divided verdict itself tells you something. The fact that both readings remain equally defensible is not a sign of ambiguity. It is the actual outcome someone carefully constructed. What does the birthday, taken whole, actually reveal about who Meghan is building herself to be? The private dinner at Funky in Beverly Hills. The Instagram caption she wrote herself. Blowing out the candles on a beautiful 24 hours. The restocked As Ever Rosé launching mid-birthday week and selling out within hours. None of that references Diana. That is precisely the point. What Meghan is building, and has been building with increasing deliberateness through 2024 and into 2025, is a commercial identity anchored in lifestyle, in home, in food, in the specific California-adjacent warmth that As Ever is designed to sell. The brand restock timed to her birthday was not accidental. Launching a new vintage of her rosé during her own celebration collapses the distance between the person and the product. That is a calculated move, and it worked. The restock sold out. The Instagram caption she chose reveals something too. It is warm, it is first person, it is specific. A named restaurant, a named chef, hibiscus flowers on the cake. These are not the details someone offers when they are performing for a ghost audience. They are the details of someone establishing a record of who they actually are, what they actually value, where they actually spent their actual birthday. Now, whether that identity occasionally echoes Diana's silhouette, her jewelry, her geography, remains genuinely contested. But the birthday itself shows someone not haunted by a predecessor, someone building forward. The question now quietly asking is not whether the Diana comparisons were fair, it is whether the identity being built is durable enough to outlast them. And on that, nothing is sealed yet. The power shifted from private to public the moment Meghan posted. That Diana comparison never closes. This wasn't a birthday. It was a calculated inheritance claim. Who exactly is she becoming?